Oh, well, hello there. This is Kieran from Cinemassacre in cartoon form, and you're watching The Variant Verdict.
Final Fantasy VII is a JRPG released by Squaresoft in 1997 on the PlayStation, quickly becoming one of the most renowned JRPGs of all time, with its unforgettable characters, story, materia, magic system, and some of the best music to ever come from video games, going down as a masterpiece of originality and creativity. It's debatable if Final Fantasy VII is actually responsible for popularizing the genre in general with Western audiences and taking the Sony PlayStation to new heights. So at E3 2015, almost 20 years later, when Square-Enix announced a game we didn't realize at the time would have a 5-year wait to find out if all of our expectations or fears would come true, only to be given tiny bits of information to hang on to from announcement to announcement. Was it worth half a decade of anticipation? Well, we're going to take a look, and we're going to start off with what I think is the biggest difference between both of these titles.
That's right, Josh, gameplay. Now, when Square Enix was releasing gameplay footage little by little, I had so many concerns and questions. Is this going to be like 15 and we can only control Cloud? Will other characters be accessible to play? How are random encounters going to work? Or is this going to be a god-awful shit show like FF13 and be as linear and awful? Yeah, I don't like 13. Yeah, my brain was racked. Thankfully, I'm happy to announce that even though the gameplay is completely different, I think they did an amazing job keeping the game action-packed yet strategic enough to make you think during battles. So as we all know, the original was a turn-based JRPG, and this is an action-oriented RPG. But the turn-based spirit is still here, and I think they blended the two perfectly.
You know, ultimately, this is the best variation of that Kingdom Hearts Crisis Core battle system, and it feels like a lot of those rough edges have been smoothed over. It is not only fun to play, but real strategic at the same time. I mean, you will not be able to win just by repeatedly hitting the square button and hacking your enemies down. Your approach to battle can significantly alter the difficulty when facing your opponents.
That's right. You see, the demo merely scratches the surface of the combat mechanics. Another concern about the gameplay I had is how is the materia system going to translate to an action style like this? So, did it translate well? Damn right it did. Materia to me is one of those things that separates FF7 from the other 14 games, and it's one of my favorite magic systems in any JRPG. Now you have to keep in mind, this is the beginning of FF7, so don't expect to get major materia like Knights of the Round or Meteor, but do expect new materia. They decided to not only include the classics like Ice, Fire, Thunder, etc., you're also going to be having materias like Deadly Dodge Attack and ATB Assist, and materias that fit in with this type of combat system. This I feel not only adds, but also improves the magic system instead of hurting.
Also, the way summons work in this is much more like Final Fantasy XV, but we do feel that this system is much better. No longer can you use summon materia at will like in the original, which some consider to be game-breaking. They will become an option during what the game considers tough battles, similar to 15, but they do happen much more frequently, and you also have the ability to choose which summons most of the time. This system is balanced enough not to be considered game-breaking, but frequent enough to expect it on the regular. We should all expect a similar system in future Final Fantasy games. And let's not forget about the abilities, which is something that is also new to the game, but has this feeling of familiarity that fits in nicely for shaking up combat. And I feel it may have to be because a few of the lower level limit breaks from the original 7 are included here, giving new relevancy to moves like Braver and Focus Shot, which, let's face it, never get used again once you get your nice limit. And I found myself using Braver even up to the end game. All 6 abilities that each of your characters have feel like they serve a purpose or can be used strategically somewhere in combat. which makes it even more interesting the different combinations and unique ways you can play through this.
Alright, so to briefly explain how the combat works, you hack away at your enemies, which fill up your ATB bars. Once you have 1 or 2 full bars, you can choose an ability, a spell, or you can choose to use an item. Now doing this will bring the game into slow-mo, allowing you time to think and strategize just like the original turn-based system. And the only real difference, if you think about it, from the original style is you attack to fill your ATB bar instead of just sitting there, waiting for your bar to fill up so you can enter your command. You feel much more engaged in the battles. And, I mean, when it comes to other aspects of gameplay, like walking around the town, interacting with environments, it's fantastic. With a few minor nitpicks, like, not being able to select doors or chests unless you're in the perfect spot, or on the rare occasion, some camera issues when you're in a small room or hallways, but half the time they can simply just be remedied by rotating the camera. Like I said, it's nitpicks, but, what can you do? It's a review.
And since you mentioned walking around the city, may I just say that when I had the ability to start walking around Midgar, I was absolutely blown away with not only how beautiful and detailed this environment is, but I never expected Midgar to feel so alive. Listening to the residents of Midgar engaging in just regular intimate conversations about their day-to-day was a refreshing way to immerse you in the events that unfold throughout with greater weight. It was truly surprising just how well every environment was created, and with great detail, and it feels familiar and true to the original game's environment, which brings me to my next topic. Graphics. Now let's face it, there's just not too much I can dive into here, other than that this game is beautiful. The lighting is fantastic, and if I had to find any complaint, if you want to call it that, is that the pre-rendered images in the far-off distance can sometimes feel a little bit off, but honestly, who is staring when you have such a great environment? The character models are spot on, and the video games have come so far when it comes to facial features and animation. I wouldn't really expect anything less than to see the most humanized versions of the characters we all know and love, surpassing the visuals of Advent Children. And while considering that movie is almost 15 years old now, it rightfully should. In my opinion, I wouldn't mind if the rest of the games come out with no graphical improvement even on the future consoles to come, especially if it helps them to release them faster. So with that said, let's get into something that's not only beloved in Final Fantasy VII, but throughout the entire Final Fantasy series.
And that's going to be the music, Josh. Now, I really don't know if there's anyone better to compose video game music other than Nobuo Uematsu, who's been composing the music of Final Fantasy since its creation. If there's a song from any of the games that you love, he's usually responsible. And in my opinion, 7's soundtrack was one of the best of the series. And when hearing songs like the Bombing Mission and Mako Reactor theme right in the beginning of the game, you can already tell the music is going to be amazing. And they even have collectible music records, which, some are included in side quests, hearing alternative versions of songs we all know, from a metal version of the boss battle theme Fight On, and a tango version of the Battle Victory song, even ranging from future songs in the games like Cosmo Canyon. Sure, there are some changes that may seem too different for Final Fantasy purists, but nothing truly bad. And you even get little sprinkles of Advent Children. That's awesome. All around, the music in this game is a masterpiece like it was in the original. And the exciting part about all of that is this wasn't the entire soundtrack or the entire story. Speaking of story,
Now, it's no secret that Final Fantasy VII's story is not only one of the most famous FF games, it also has a beloved story that is just coveted by its fanbase. Honestly, this was a big risk by Square-Enix, remaking such a beloved game. It almost feels like the equivalent of, remaking Star Wars: A New Hope. The fanbase can be very sensitive. This game follows the very first chapter in Midgar, a which is honestly not a large part of the original game. It has been said that when originally creating it though, they wanted Midgar to be a much bigger experience, and due to restraints were never able to accomplish what they truly wanted to when creating Midgar. So here we have a section of the original Final Fantasy VII that played out roughly between 7 and 10 hours before, where now here you play about 35 to 40 hours. It would be easy to assume that this is just a case of not getting nearly enough of the game's story to justify its existence, but somehow the developers have managed to stretch out this portion of the game without feeling like overkill. I mean, there is enough here to explore and see on display here that by the time the credits hit, I think most would agree that it feels like the perfect amount of time to spend in one place. Not only do we get every moment that you experience in the original, but you get it with the ability to let the situations and characters and interactions breathe. All of the extras in a tiny scene are not only noticed, but it is an improvement. This allows time for us to have even more moments with other members of Avalanche, which ultimately you didn't get a lot of time with in the original, considering the entire story of the original. I mean, never have I cared about Jesse or Biggs, and I guess Wedge than I ever have before. But one thing you can look at as a downside is that there are points in the game where the main story seems to halt and you are handed a handful of side quests all at once instead of gradually stringing them throughout the game. They are all kind of just clustered in sections, and they can make the pace just downright stop and go at times. Not saying the side quests are bad, some of them serve as a way to keep things from the original game, like the squats at the gym. It may not be required to obtain a part for Cloud Strife like it was in the original, but it is still there. I feel if you're a fan of the original, you're going to have an enhanced experience, and if you're new, you should be able to enjoy the game and experience the story we all know and love and became a fan of, and join the rest of us who love this game. I mean, what else can I say?
Alright, so this might be a good time to tell you that if you have not beaten the game at this point, I please urge you to churn away. But if you honestly don't care, this is your spoiler warning, because things are about to get a little crazy here, so go finish the game and then get back to us. Just like the movie Fight Club, you will not be able to experience this game the way it was truly meant to until you play through this game a second time. And just like the movie, you don't realize the twist that was right in front of your face the whole time until the reveal. Now, this game may have just done something that a lot of remakes may be doing from this point forward. Now, please keep in mind, a lot of what I'm about to say are just theories and have not been confirmed, but with so much evidence, it's pretty hard to deny. A major change we have in the story of this game is a new addition called The Whispers. At first I had no idea why they're in this game. They ultimately felt like plot ghosts, only there so they could force you to go certain ways to progress the plot of the original story, which, felt unnecessary. An example of one of these moments is where Aerith and Cloud are running out of the church, where Aerith is about to fall, which would severely either injure her or kill her even, drastically changing, the way the game would turn out. But instead, they catch her and lift her up to ensure that they continue their escape, or even sometimes being violent towards them. So there's a lot of instances like this, but soon you find out what exactly they're doing. Now, at the end of the game, it's explained how the Whispers are in fact influencing destiny, and this left me with two major questions. Why would the story be at risk? And why would the game acknowledge change at all? And then it hit me. Now keep in mind, this is all theory, but I think the Whispers are in fact us, the fan base. The way I see the Whispers representing the fan base is the fact that we don't want things to change. We want things to be the way that they originally are. And they are there to ensure that it follows the original game. Now think about this. Why is the game acknowledging the fact that this is happening all over again? Now going back to the ending. At the end of the highway, the original exit of Midgar, you instead encounter Sephiroth. he creates a portal to the Barrier of Whispers. And in this dimension, you have to fight 3 Whispers, with one handling guns, one wielding a sword, and another using their fist with a single glove. So do these represent Cloud, Barret, and Tifa? Keep in mind, none of this is in the original game at all. These 3 are also connected to a giant Arbiter of Fate. Defeat these 3 who are connected to an Arbiter, and then deal the final blow, destroying the control of Destiny. Wait, what? So, not only do I see it as the Whispers represent the fan base, but us as the player kills the destiny of the original game, allowing the change? And after all that is done, we then get a showdown with Sephiroth against a gradually growing team, which does have a familiar Advent Children feel at first. And once defeated, we get something I never expected to happen. All of a sudden, you end up at the final showdown of the original game. This time, the battle goes the other way, ending in a very puzzling conversation about how Sephiroth won't kill Cloud because he himself needs him, almost as if they need to coexist together, otherwise all of this won't work, going as far as to offering an alliance. So when Cloud obviously refuses and then gets punked out by good old Sephi, he then poses another question. What will he do with his 7 seconds? My original theory is maybe the 7 seconds represented the real final battle, considering that probably that's all it took to get Omnislash off. But research has shown me that it does in fact take 7 seconds for him to kill Aerith in the original, which is most likely what all of this represents. In the beginning of the game, right before you would normally meet Aerith for the first time, you instead get cut off and led down an alleyway through a vision of Nibelheim by Sephiroth, and gives you a little speech appearing to kind of waste your time. And now when this is all said and done, and you walk out of that alley, and then you run into Aerith, where, unlike the original, she is being surrounded by ghosts stuck in her position. And I know I sound crazy, but I do see this as Sephiroth is actually coming from the future, luring Cloud away so that he never meets Aerith, changing destiny, while the Whispers, combating this, keep her there to ensure they are meeting so that the story goes on as it should. Like we want. Sephiroth isn't just the villain to our characters. He's become the villain to the fan base and to us. Now, another thing that we're going to want to take into an account to help this Advent Children theory is Sephiroth's one wing. In the original game, the wing was white. The first time you see the black wing of Sephiroth is his resurrection in the movie. So maybe when he utters the words, "I will never be a memory," and reverts back to Kadaj, maybe that was when he returned to the moment we first see him in Remake. And the final connection I have to bring up is not my theory, but it does help connect all of this to the 3 Whispers. Going back to the 3 Whispers, I brought up possibly representing Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. But when looking at the weapons, only 1 punching glove, 2 guns and not just 1, and a sword which doesn't make much of a difference, but does appear to be a one-handed sword. What if these weapons represent another trio? Could it in fact be Kadaj, Yazoo, and Lowe's from Advent Children? Sephiroth has the ability to control anything with Genova cells, and can travel through the life stream, so who knows what he is capable at this point? Well, we have a little bit of a wait to see if any of this is true. Now, I could go on and on about these theories, and there are plenty of videos out there that are analyzing this to death. But since coming up with this, I've heard multiple podcasts and YouTubers also speak of these same theories, so I feel this has merit, and I'm not just making this up. Think about that. And what could that mean for the destiny of our characters we've loved for so long? Not only does it make me nervous to see where the rest of this game is going, but I think I'm more excited than anything to see how this all unfolds. And if these theories actually end up being true, this would be one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen with a story spanning almost 25 years with games, prequels, a movie, and then to come full circle and bring it all back again in the most interesting way possible. Maybe even becoming a third installment disguised as a remake.
Thank you for watching, guys. Give us a comment, like, share, and subscribe to our content if you like what you saw. Also leave us a comment to let us know what you think. Thank you for watching.